Hi, my name is Greta Rosler, and I'm a registered nurse and the founder and CEO of Radius Leaders, which is a nurse leader development partnership company. Well, many years ago, so when I first became a manager, I was handed a set of keys and a Rolodex, which really dates me, and told, you're going to be great. And my predecessor said, I'll be right upstairs if you need anything. And that was humbling. That was a humbling experience. And I quickly figured out I knew absolutely nothing and that it was a really, really hard job. And as I moved through parts of my role over the years and changed into different roles, I started realizing that this was the experience of many nurse leaders and many nurses who had been deemed as appropriate leaders, but given little to no tools or resources to do the job really well and to be effective. So that's how I got here. I started realizing there was a need to serve nurse leaders in this way. I felt like the leaders that put me in that role had the utmost confidence that I could do it. What I also realized was that I didn't have great confidence I could do it, but I just sort of figuratively put my head down and tried to figure it out. What I then realized over time is that many leaders might not have that same sense of resolve about it or that same sense of self-efficacy to get it done. And so what we see happening in nursing leadership is that it's not getting any easier. And a lot of leaders struggle with this lack of tools and lack of resources to figure out how to do their work well. So I don't feel like I was set up to fail, but I do feel like it would have been very easy to fail. Well, I read a lot of books and I really tried to upskill myself organically by finding resources online and reading books. And I was back in school at the time, but to be honest with you, academic programs are wonderful and I really believe in them. And they don't prepare you for having a hard conversation with your staff or figuring out when it's time to terminate someone or managing the social dynamics of a drug diversion in your unit. They don't prepare you for that stuff. And so what I've translated this gap to are frameworks that my team and I teach to other leaders, because just saying you're a good nurse, you know how to take care of people, does not translate to now you know how to have an effective performance conversation, or now you know how to do an effective nurse leader round. I had to figure all that out by trial and error. And so what that has meant to me as an entrepreneur is I want to give leaders tools that are practical, that they can take and use right away, that are observable so that their leader can see, are they doing it or not? And that are able to be customized to their environment. So, when we teach people how to do a round or teach people how to have a performance conversation, that has to be really contextualized to the employee, to the environment. And so that's what I have really been proud of and excited about doing, is giving leaders those tools. This has been an age-old problem in nursing where we find the best clinical nurses and we make them leaders because we think that that level of clinical acumen will translate to leadership skill. And that's sorely wrong because it's a totally different skill set in many ways. And so the reason it keeps happening is because nursing has never been positioned as a profession like other industries. So for instance, if you're in business and you start at an entry-level business position, there's a sort of organic and logical progression to leadership. But in nursing, you start as clinical, you're a good clinical nurse, now it's time to be a manager, which is just this whole different skill set. And it's been long acknowledged that nurses are underserved in this way. And the other problem with it is that from a professional perspective, we've sort of done ourselves a disservice. We have required that nurses go get advanced degrees, certifications, and all the many things over the past few decades that have become highly important to elevate our profession have done us a disservice in terms of learning how to actually be leaders, because that's not where you learn how to be a leader, although those are now all the things that are required to elevate our profession. So it's like there's this very strange juxtaposition of this problem, which is everybody's getting advanced degrees and certificates, but still nurses and potential leaders are lacking in what tools and resources they have to learn how to do that part of their job. Well, a good nurse leader, an effective nurse leader, is one who has a high level of self-awareness and emotional intelligence, and self-efficacy, meaning that if they believe they can do it, they probably can do it. And they're rooting a lot of their actions and behaviors in things that are more academic in nature, authentic leadership principles, and tenets of then servant leadership, things like that. But they're also then putting those things into practice in a very tactical way. There's sort of this misconstrued belief that authentic leaders are wearing their heart on their sleeve and they just tell it like it is. But really, when you look at the theory of authentic leadership and the practice of it, that's not what it boils down to. It boils down to leaders who have a moral and ethical balance and can take all the information that's being thrown at them all day, figure out how to balance it, how to process it, how to support their team with it, but also how to maintain the relationships with their team at the center of all they do. And that to me is a really effective leader. But you have to be able to do all those things very tactically and strategically to achieve improved outcomes. And that is a very complex skill set. I learned some time ago, the value in a couple of different roles I've had. I've learned the value of having really good principles of adult education embedded in teaching nurse leaders this stuff. It's not enough to send nurse leaders to a large conference with tens of thousands of people or to send them to an organizational workshop on, difficult conversations or something. Those things are all fine, but usually what those things do is they just raise awareness about things, maybe give them some knowledge. What what I really try to focus on in partnering with nurse leaders is building skills through letting them practice the skills, simulate them, giving them feedback on the skills based on their individual goals and needs. So it's really about creating tailored learning for each leader that achieves this outcome and isn't just some mill of nurse leaders going to some big conference and hoping that they glean something from it that they can take back and use. And there's tons of great information at those big events. What those don't do is they don't change behavior. And that's what I focus on. Yeah. So it's interesting. It's hard the way we do this work, because it is so personalized and because we really hold true to maintaining the fidelity of small groups learn best. That's where psychological safety is best, but that's also where behavior change really happens. If you put people in a room of 40, 50, 60 people, they're not going to be psychologically safe to get uncomfortable enough to change behavior and learn in that way. So we teach some frameworks to help leaders with these difficult things like leader rounding, performance management conversations. And we do those things in the body of an entire learning program. But we do it through role play, simulation. We let them pick the scenario. What scenario might you encounter that you need to talk about or that would be good to practice? And then we set up small group role plays and everybody has a role in the role play. And then we all give them feedback. And at first, this is a really uncomfortable thing for leaders. And what we know is that there's a healthy amount of learning tension where it becomes sticky. If we don't create enough tension, they're not bought into it and it doesn't stick. So we like to increase the tension enough that they actually take something from it. And it also has a parallel process of helping them feel really confident. Like, look what I could do. And the feedback we give is really focused on what they did well and what was effective and their learning goals. So it's really tailored to them. And it's a really beautiful process to see it happen. But this is why this can't be done extremely quickly, just online. We do stuff online, and we have online programs, and they connect people in a lot of unique and interesting ways too. And there is no replacement for bringing nurse leaders together to talk about their challenges and let them work through them in that way. I feel my goal is always to make a difference to someone. Just like as a nurse, I wanted to make a difference to my patients. Now it's no different. I want to make a difference to nurse leaders. And many clients have shared things with me. Like, for instance, I had a client a few years ago that said, so what happens is we do this learning, we teach them a bunch of things, we work on it, and then often we'll go out in the department and round with them and coach them on their rounds and let them really figure out in real time, how is this working for me, or where do I need to adjust? And I'll never forget, a few years ago, a client said to me, she said, I was really ready to quit. And since I got this type of support where I actually now know what to say, when to say it, and how to apply these things, I feel like I can do this job. I don't feel like I have to quit anymore, whereas before I felt like I did. We also see, one of my current clients right now, we taught them how to round effectively, and we've really made a culture change there. Their whole hospital is using these systems, and their outcomes have improved really significantly, and their rounding volumes have improved really significantly. And I look at that and I'm like, that is one health system, and yet there's so many more that need it, and it's possible, and it gives me hope that we can help them. But it's it's really touching to me to see when a small pocket of nurse leaders figures out, wow, I can actually do this work. It doesn't have to kill me. I can actually do it, enjoy it, and find fulfillment in it. 100%. I think that healthcare healthcare is such a hot mess. And that's a shame to say because there's so many wonderful people working within it. And it's almost like we need to wipe the slate clean in terms of how we've been doing business and how we need to do business. And my hope is that through this work, yes, we're extending caring from leaders who are caring for their teams, who are caring for patients. And we're giving leaders new ways to care about their team that is going to have an impact, because that's what we see happen when we do it. I'm one person and I have a team of nurse leaders that do the work with me. So that's a big challenge, is figuring out how to scale this in the right way, which is where Hive comes in. We're really excited about Hive as a partner. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that or not, but that's a huge challenge. The other big challenge is getting out there and really showing our value in such a huge world of healthcare and consulting. And so lots of nurses. I have nurses contact me constantly about, I want to go into business. I want to do what you did. How did you do it? And I always say, like, get ready, because I think people think it is a little glamorous or something. Not even a little, honestly, although I love every second of it. And it's really hard work to put yourself out in a market where you're up against huge consulting companies or big names that have lots of books written. And it's hard to put yourself out there. But then when you do find the clients that find the value in not being one of those parties, it all is worth it, because you're still a nurse, working with other nurses, working with leaders, making a difference.